Hillary Getty, the wealthy horse owner and bloodstock vendor to the stars, had toyed with me. He had felt burned by our Week 2 win in DC, and so he wanted to show me up by proving how truly small I am in this business. Wining and dining me at his golf clubs and private estate before lining up an elaborate sales pitch in which one romp for Rigid Mind and his stables would cost more than we've got left in cash for the rest of the season. But we beat him again, where it truly counts the most, on the track. Buster said watching Rigid Mind run was like seeing wildfire tear through a dry cornfield on a windswept afternoon.
Hell's bells, Ryder! I felt like a foolish kid again.
So in that sense, I felt we had bested Getty, and I could close that chapter. After a series of events like that, you'd think Buster and I would paint the town 3 shades of purple and celebrate in revelry. But instead, I become ill with fever. I am sick, sweating buckets and bedridden with aches and pains. Buster calls me from the stables and suggests we shut the whole thing down for a couple of months so that Rigid Mind and myself can both rest and recuperate. But against Buster's judgment, the rigid mind inside my own skull only sees our bank account, and its balance is less than half what we started with. When the season started, I hawked all my material possessions to the guy at the pawn shop to earn the money to take a shot at my dreams. Now I can't stop thinking about Getty's warning about training sessions slowly draining your bankroll. And after winning a series of small change races, we finally secured our first graded win. And with that, the substantial prize purse of $5,200. I'd like to keep the greenbacks blowing our way. So even though I'm sick as a dog, I mutter to Buster, "I'll be ready to ride." And then I instruct him to get Rigid Mind registered in the soonest available race, the Hong Kong Stakes. Then I let my aching head fall onto the pillow and I slip into a deep slumber. My unconscious thoughts are overtaken and occupied with dark feelings, thunderous ambience, and a crawling anxiety. Emerging from the abyss is the vision of a man whose identity is completely foreign to me, yet his presence gives me an unexplained sense of familiarity. Not comfort, just an unknown link which I feel powerless to break. His hand fan beats away at the air in tiny bursts with a haunting rhythm. His eyes stare, no, they glare directly into me as if shouting a question in a silent language which I'm unable to translate. Then, slowly he dissolves from my unconscious dream, and I drift peacefully over water, and slowly into the quiet darkness of a cave.
Show me thine bustin' trifecta.
I jolt awake, placing my hand on my bedside golf bag for comfort. As the race draws near, my headache migrates to my belly, and to call it a bowel-twisting stomach bug would be kind. For this reason, I opt to travel with Rigid Mind by train so I can lie down like a tramp in the boxcar and get some rest during the journey. But every time I slip into slumber, the phantom with the hand fan appears, tormenting me with a silent fluttering rhythm. You can imagine my surprise when I wake up and disembark in New Orleans for the Hong Kong Stakes. But it was apparently the soonest race Buster could get us signed off on, as I instructed him to do. At the track, Buster and I share little more than professional courtesies, as I can tell he's getting road-worn and weary. But before I know it, I've saddled up high atop Rigid Mind, and they load us into the starting gate stalls. I'm feeling lightheaded with fever and trying my best to stay upright in the saddle so that the starter doesn't become suspect to my condition and scratch us from the race. Rigid Mind flicks her ears nervously. I can feel droplets of sweat run from beneath the hard shell of my racing cap, down through the tangle of my sideburns and dripping off my chin. I glance down to see where the droplets are falling, just then noticing my left foot is hanging loose out of the stirrup. Then the buzzer goes off and the gate opens. Rigid Mind lunges and we're jerked back into place, the stirrup stuck on a bolt in the gate. I kick down, knocking it loose, and we tear off from the starting line, a good clip back on the pack. As we rumble forward, the dizzy spell sets over me like a thick blanket. I lean forward, closing my eyes and holding on to Rigid Mind, not guiding her, but clinging to her massive undulating form for my own safety. As I feel us enter the first turn, we are still far off the leader, but as we come out of the turn, the one consolation is that we're running a nice slow pace, and her burst should be ready when I call upon her. Sweat stings my eyes and I close them again. "Come on, girl," I whisper against the cutting wind. But when I open them, a flash. There he is again, the Phantom, dominating my vision, occupying my mind. A whiff of doubt breezes over my mind with every sway of his fan. As we turn into the home stretch, the pack of horses far ahead of us, I close my eyes, calling on her again and again while hoping for a miracle. She responds, accelerating forward, galloping with a mighty force towards the pack ahead. The final furlongs flashing past in a blur of stinging sweat and hallucinatory flash frames. But it's not enough. The horses cross the finish line all together, followed by us, in dead last. After our massive defeat, Penn Bowie, the handicapper who was so beguiled by Rigid Mind, now seems bemused. And nearly everyone has an opinion on our turn in fortunes. As gambling vanguard Fortuitous Creek chimes in,
"It's not the horse, it's the rider! He's got the yips, and a bad case of them to boot."
Well, I don't believe I do have the yips, and I know there is one place where I can prove that. To silence Bowie, to silence Creek, and perhaps most importantly, to silence the haunting phantom which torments my soul. We'll travel to the center of the thoroughbred racing universe, Lexington, Kentucky, at the prestigious Grade 3 Lexington Handicap. That's where we'll redeem our reputation and earn a purse hefty enough to get us on track for the remainder of the season. When I inform Buster of my decision, he just shakes his head in disapproval. But he's not the one with a finite bankroll and on the verge of losing his dreams. And with each passing week I spend money on Buster's training regimen, I sink further towards a future on Skid Row. We need a big win, and we need it now. And so, we're Kentucky bound. Race day is a hot dirt track beneath a Kentucky blue sky filled with Kentucky puffed clouds. The gate bursts open and we jolt forward with the pack. As the horses surge forward, I gently ease us back, just behind the group, trying to replicate the racing style that has brought us so much success in the earlier part of the season. As we round the first bend, just a few lengths off the leaders, her endurance is holding strong, and we seem to be in a good position with the group ahead. But as the race goes on, my mind again becomes clouded with the interfering image of the Phantom. With each stroke of his decorative hand fan, I feel a tidal wave of air pushing against us, keeping us from proceeding forward with the runners. Could the doubts that Creek cast be true? Is this what the yips feel like? And am I, in fact, afflicted with said yips? I may have that answer sooner than I'd like, as we come out of the last turn the same way we entered the first one, in last place, with hardly any daylight ahead. With only 2 furlongs to go, I call on Rigid Mind, and she answers, surging ahead, but to what end? A solid wall of glossy, muscled flesh blocks our path. I pull her inside, towards the rail, searching for a crevice to bump and grind through, but there is none. As the final furlong crawls past in slow motion, I feel my grip on the harness loosen, then release. I fall from the saddle, as we fall from contention, in nearly last place. I'm carried from the track into the jockey's quarters and tossed on a bale of hay near Rigid Mind's stall. I don't know if it's the bootleg painkillers they've administered or my own madness that took over my mind, but all I could see was the Phantom and the misfortune and Getty's booming voice, repeating over and over,
Brush it off. And run her again! Run her again! Run her again!
I mumble over and over to Buster that we have to run Rigid Mind. We have to run her again until finally Buster puts it to me plainly.
The horse can't run!
And I pass into slumber. When I awaken, there aren't any gamblers, no handicappers, no bug boys or saddle sallies, just me and Rigid Mind, alone in the stall. Buster is gone. Just gone, baby, gone.